Welcome back to another episode of Shawn Thinking Out Loud. I'm your host, Shawn Armstrong, broadcasting from my secret hideout in beautiful Brazil. In this episode, we're diving into some hot topics, hotter than the Brazilian sun. Yesterday, Trump dropped 50% tariffs on Brazil. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Well, hold on to your hats, because the reaction from Brazil's leftist government is nothing short of dramatic. In a move that feels like it was ripped straight from the pages of a political thriller, they decided to raid the house of former President Jair Bolsonaro. They put him in an ankle bracelet. Imagine the tension in the air as officials stormed through his residence, searching for evidence linked to alleged corruption and mismanagement during his administration. This unexpected turn of events has sent shockwaves throughout Brazil and beyond, stirring up debates about political accountability and the consequences of leadership choices. As if that weren't enough, this dramatic showdown highlights the deep divisions within Brazilian politics, where Bolsonaro supporters view this raid as a politically motivated attack, while his critics see it as a necessary step towards justice. The fallout from this situation could reshape not only Brazil's political landscape, but also its relationship with the United States, especially in the light of these tariff changes. It's a compelling saga that's unfolding in real time with implications that could resonate well into the future, so stay tuned. Now, I have to say, I'm not particularly invested in the political battles down here. After all, the Brazilians elected these communists, so there's something they seem to be overlooking, and it's rather significant. If the government feels empowered enough to take such drastic actions against a former president, it raises a troubling question about the implications for ordinary citizens. It's a chilling thought that we really need to explore today. Imagine living in a society where your leaders can swiftly dismantle the legacy of a predecessor without much hesitation. What does that mean for the average person? It suggests a precarious environment where dissent might not just be discouraged, but actively punished. People could start to wonder, if they can go after someone as prominent as a former president, who's next? This kind of atmosphere can stifle free speech and create an underlying fear that permeates everyday life. Citizens may find themselves second-guessing their opinions or even their relationships, worried that their thoughts could land them in hot water. So, while many might brush off these political maneuvers as just another chapter in Brazil's tumultuous history, it's essential to recognize how such actions ripple through society, potentially eroding trust and silencing voices at every level. Let's unpack this situation a bit more. Bolsonaro was undoubtedly a controversial figure during his presidency, which is characterized by a strong conservative stance and an unwavering commitment to free market policies that aim to invigorate Brazil's economy. However, his approach also polarized the nation, sparking fervent debates on various social issues, environmental policies, and governance. Fast forward to today, with the communists now in charge, we are witnessing an aggressive crackdown against him and his supporters that raises serious concerns about the safety and security of dissenters and ordinary citizens alike in Brazil. It's hard not to feel uneasy when you consider how much political shifts can affect freedom of expression and the very fabric of democratic society. This situation begs important questions. Are dissenting voices being silenced? What does this mean for the future of political discourse in Brazil? And perhaps most critically, how will everyday Brazilians navigate this increasingly fraught landscape? As tensions rise, it becomes essential to monitor these developments closely, as they could have profound implications not just for political opponents, but for anyone who values civil liberties in the country. And while we're at it, let's address U.S. involvement, or interference, depending on how you want to frame it. When President Biden diverted chips from Taiwan to Brazilian voting machines and sent CIA operatives to silence Bolsonaro, I was more than just ticked off. I was genuinely concerned about the implications of such actions. It's an unsettling precedent that raises serious questions about national sovereignty and the ethics of foreign intervention. Shouldn't countries be allowed to handle their own affairs without outside meddling? I think so. Imagine a world where nations can navigate their own political landscapes without the shadow of foreign influence looming over them. The idea that one country could orchestrate events in another, especially in a democracy where every vote should reflect the will of the people, is not just troubling, it undermines the very foundation of self-determination. We've seen this kind of interference before, with varying degrees of chaos and backlash, and it often leaves a trail of resentment and instability in its wake. If we truly believe in democracy, then we must respect each nation's right to chart its own course, even if it leads to outcomes we might not personally agree with. After all, isn't that what democracy is supposed to be about? Now, let's zoom out a bit. This isn't just about Brazil or the U.S. It's about the fundamental question of sovereignty and how foreign powers can manipulate situations for their gain. When we consider the historical context, it becomes clear that intervention often leads to unintended consequences, creating a cycle of dependency rather than empowerment. Take, for instance, the U.S.'s involvement in various Latin American countries throughout the 20th century. While framed as efforts to promote democracy and stability, these actions frequently resulted in political turmoil and long-lasting resentment towards foreign influence. Are we really doing these nations any favors by meddling in their politics? It's worth pondering whether our intentions align with the outcomes we produce. By imposing our values and systems on other nations, are we respecting their autonomy or simply asserting our dominance? Sovereignty is not just a buzzword, it's a core principle that embodies the rights of nations to govern themselves without external interference. So when we reflect on these interventions, we should ask ourselves, are we genuinely supporting these countries in their quest for self-determination, or are we merely reshaping them to fit our strategic interests? The answer may reveal much about our own values and priorities as global citizens. As I ponder this, I'm reminded of a quote from Thomas Jefferson. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If we were alive today, what would he think about our government's involvement in Brazil? Would he see an overreach, a betrayal of very principles of freedom and self-determination? And speaking of principles, I want to remind you all to check out the Federalists every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We dive into the minds of the founders themselves as they discuss their motivations for crafting the U.S. Constitution. It's a chance to hear history through their own words, a real treasure trove for anyone interested in politics. So, to wrap things up, we've seen Brazil take some serious steps that highlight the fragility of power and the consequences of political polarization. The actions against Bolsonaro are not just a response to one individual, they resonate as a powerful message to every citizen in Brazil, and perhaps even beyond its borders. It's a stark reminder that democracy can be delicate, easily swayed by the currents of division and discontent. In recent years, we've witnessed how the landscape of Brazilian politics has shifted dramatically, with fervent supporters and staunch opponents often clashing in public spaces, echoing similar divides in other nations around the world. These events urge us all to remain vigilant about who wields power and how they choose to exercise it. It's crucial for citizens to hold their leaders accountable, ensuring that authority is used responsibly and transparently. After all, the health of a democracy relies not just on laws and institutions, but on an engaged populace that is willing to speak out against injustices and advocate for change. In this interconnected age, what happens in Brazil can send ripples across the globe, reminding us that we all share a collective responsibility to safeguard our democratic values and promote unity over division. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Shawn Thinking Out Loud. If you enjoyed this discussion or found it thought-provoking, please consider subscribing and sharing this podcast with friends who might also appreciate some raw and unfiltered insights into global affairs. And don't forget to check out my range of books on politics, history, and more. Links are in the description. Stay curious, stay informed, and until next time, keep thinking out loud.